Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets, presented by PrizePicks here on the Mayo Media Network. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell to walk through Tuesday, March 16th, NHL slate of action. DJ, 7 games on the docket on Tuesday. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. I mean, 7 games, it's very, I kind of like these slates. Honestly, I feel like I do my best when it's a little bit more, there's not too much going on. There's not a ton of news and notes. I have to be jamming through a million teams at 7:00. These are kind of my bread and butter, my favorite ones to really dive in on and try to do as much as I possibly can. So I'm really excited for this one. 7 games. But the weirdest part about it is everything's a 5.5 except for one. Not used to that. So as you can imagine, there are no Canadian teams on this docket. So Matt, how are you? Is there anything you want to start us off with?
No, I mean, I'm doing all right. I had a good weekend. So, Monday we'll just forget about it. I didn't play Barkov. So, that's sort of, I didn't play Demko either. So Barkov and Demko, there's those two combined, I think have double what my lineup has tonight. Like it's just kind of ridiculous, but that's Monday night. We obviously are a forward thinking show as the story goes. Some interesting, news and notes around the league came out of Monday, notably Adam Fox on the COVID protocol. Like that's, obviously concerning for the Rangers. That the Sabres are playing Tuesday, but just getting absolutely trucked by the Capitals was pretty funny. But, not a ton that was, all so that, laughing. I guess, really. Yeah, very, very funny. But I don't know. Is there anything from Monday night that you wanted to take away or should we just move on?
I mean, Monday bring us to Tuesday. It's just the Matt Grzelcyk, but we'll just get to that. We don't want to rush into anything. But Matt, I thought you wanted to tell me about PrizePicks. You always tell me about it.
I do. Yeah. So, before we get to the Tuesday slate of action, let's talk about PrizePicks. Make sure you head on over to prizepicks.com. You sign up using the promo code MMN as in Mayo Media Network. If you tailed Chris on the Monday show, he told you the jam in Ovi. Ovi made you sweat. He had 4 shots in the third. He needed, I think it was 4.5 fantasy score to, hit the over there. But Ovi did it. He scored with 5 minutes left, hit the over for you. So, Chris always comes through for us with those picks. Make sure you check out the Mayo Media Network Twitter feed to see our top prize picks as well. But it's pretty simple. All you do is you make an entry with up to 5 players. Each of those players has an assigned over and under fantasy score. And, you pick the over, you pick the under, and you can win up to 10x your initial buy-in. So your entry fee. So that's, how that works. When you sign up using the code MMN, you can get up to $100, 100% match deposit bonus. So just make sure you're doing that. It's a great way to play along with the games. And let's get on into Tuesday's action. DJ, where are we starting?
Unfortunately, we're starting with the Buffalo Sabres at the New Jersey Devils. We could just stop right now if you'd like. I think what's most surprising, honestly, like I say on most shows, I normally just don't bet the Sabres games unless if there's some sort of an edge I think I found or have in any capacity. This one, I'm really feeling the New Jersey line. As long as Kruger is still the coach, I mean, they just did not look like they wanted to show up and actually play. They got steamrolled. It wasn't even remotely close. My favorite stat was that the Sabres feed said they had 4 scoring chances on 2 shots on net in the first period. Just impressive work trying to make it look like they were even sort of in that game. They got murdered. As far as DFS goes, this is the cheapest game by far in any capacity. We'll get to more of the line stacks and what to do there. But Matt, you wanted to say something? I don't want to keep you from saying it.
It's bad when on the Monday show, Chris Meany is talking about the Buffalo-Washington game, and he literally apologizes to you and me. Like he literally said, like, sorry to my Buffalo boys, Matt and DJ over there. Moved and like, I was listening. I was taken aback. I'm like, is this how bad it is? Like we have someone, like we have someone literally apologizing to us for having to root for this team. Like it's just awful, man.
There was an article that rated the Seattle Kraken as a better franchise than the Buffalo Sabres, and they have a single player on the roster.
Hot take: the Kraken should be rated above like 10 NHL teams. But let's anyway, we're talking about the bets and the plays here. The money line of -152, absolutely does make some amount of sense. There's not a ton of really high powered offenses on this slate, which I think is, makes things really interesting. We obviously have a few, but the few that we do have, we're going to have really hefty price tags to pay on them. So I certainly think if you're backing the Devils money line, and at this point, there's really no reason not to, taking some stabs at these Devils is just a really nice way to go. Yeah. So this is the one game that I think the over 5.5 is actually the strongest bet. Of course, it's tough when the Sabres, are putting up 0-1. But, it's just true. They have scored 1 goal before, though. I'm pretty sure. I would need to check, but okay. I do feel pretty good about the over here, though. The Devils are just this insanely fast-paced team. They're not doing much with it at the moment, but it's there. Like you said, DJ, the Sabres aren't trying. The Devils are trying, and they're just not very good. So I think that should lead to a lot of opportunities. And I think I'm just willing to take a bet that these guys can capitalize, because I think a lot of these other games are pretty lower paced. So give me the over and give me the Devils money line.
Yeah, I think that's definitely where I would kind of go to. I do think the Sabres find a way off their 150-minute goalless. They get off that streak. But, I think where I'm trying to attack here is either Palmieri, Hughes, or Zacha, all with the same amount of odds to get 1 point at minus 125. I mean, guys like Zacha and Hughes saw like 23 minutes last game. If you give any player 20-minute plus against the Sabres and they don't get a point, they should probably go back to the AHL. So I feel pretty good about, either of those. I think Zacha is a supremely gifted player. Hughes, not quite having the run with Palmieri. I'm going to be interested. Just make sure the lines stick like they are. But Palmieri with Zacha, I think, is a really strong 2-man stack in general. So I definitely think I'll be putting in one of those guys with the minus 125 to have a point. I could maybe get talked into Palmieri 2 points, but it's been so few and far between this year where he's done anything of that nature that I probably just stick to the one and parlay that with something else. So, Matt, is there any other thing, maybe a shot prop involved here?
So look, the Pavel Zacha thing, I think, is absolutely a full go. He's like 4K on DraftKings. You can absolutely do that. He's minus 125 to get a point. I do really like that. But man, these Devils have been so bad defensively that I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I'm like frothing at the mouth to get a piece of these Sabres lines, because let me just tell you, over the last 10 games, the Devils have given up over 1.5 goals above expected per 60 minutes, like just defensively at 5-on-5. That is by far the worst mark in the league. Second is the Buffalo Sabres. Third, because somehow Philly is second, but I bet after, maybe not even after Monday night, that changes. But, just in any case, these are 2 really bad defenses. And yes, the Sabres can't score, but Sam Reinhart's just my guy. Like, minus 129 to get a point here against this Devils team. He's going to play 20 minutes. He's going to be on the top power play. I'm not sure I'm betting his shot prop over 2.5 at plus 120, but if I were to bet one, I think that would be the number. Like, I just really think that there is something here. Like this Reinhart, whatever line he's been on, even without Eichel, it's just been good. Like, they've not been great, of course, but you're just talking great value against a really poor defensive team and what I think is a really up-tempo matchup. I just think that, this is very much so a go in terms of these player props. So if you're not doing the Zacha, I think you can definitely do Reinhart at the same number, but I probably prefer Zacha myself. So any other thoughts here?
Yeah, no, Zacha favorite bet of the night from this game at least. And we can move on over, if you're ready, to the Islanders at the Capitals, which I think will have some of the biggest, I guess, slate breaking or, betting news to come out tomorrow. So we do want to be making sure we're checking that. It does look like Peugeot is probable to play after potentially a false positive COVID test. So if that happens, I think we're going to get some different lines than we saw in their last matchup when they kind of ran Barzal as much as they could. The first power play was a little bit different. So, with all of that being said, Matt, this game, this matchup, where are your initial leans? And is there, anything that might change that?
Yeah, I mean, my lean in this one is that I just really like the Islanders, offering value here. Like, yes, they've put up a lot of numbers against some bad teams like the Devils, like the Sabres, but they showed up to play against the Bruins. They might have even outplayed the Bruins in that game that they ended up winning in a shootout. They're just rolling here, 9 straight wins for the Islanders. Just everything in me. I think even though they're on the road, like basically at a pick 'em here, I just like the Islanders. And then when you start to talk about like DFS, which of course is where my brain goes to most of the time, it's just there's so much value on the Islanders side of things with the Anders Lee injury. It's almost like like a basketball situation where like this giant vacuum goes, this guy goes out and there's just a ton to fill. And Kiefer Bellows has been the guy there. So, that's a great player prop to get in on, get in on it early. Of course, he has 3 goals in 2 games. So it has been sort of priced down a little bit, but still you can get him at plus 320 to score a goal. Like that just seems wrong. If he's playing with Barzal and if he's on that top power play unit, like he has been, it just strikes me as a really, really good value spot. He has all the talent in the world coming in. He's a pedigreed prospect, great shot. So he's just a guy who I think I'm going to ride. But any other players here or any other like sides of this game that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, first up, I do like the Islanders in this matchup. I think I slightly fade towards the under, but I'm not super strong on that. But when you give me the Islanders and a back-to-back Washington team, I just could really see that not quite getting over the 5.5 mark. Although anytime you have Ovi on a slate, you could definitely pot 2 and get that over. So I normally, just might stay away from that, but I think I do like the under a little bit. Then other than that, yeah, I do kind of like the value on Bellows and Wahlstrom to score. I think 320, depending on what the power plays shape out to be. Either of those guys could find themselves on the top unit. Wahlstrom was there last time. Like I think you kind of alluded to, it could be Bellows, depending on what they kind of sort out with that. But both of those guys seem to have pretty good value. And they're just good rate shooters, and they both come in with the same pedigree of being great shooters. Mm-hmm. So I'm totally down with that. If you play Tolvanen and like that at the same odds, I think either of these guys could potentially be a very similar type of play. And Tolvanen has taken flight, scored again on Monday. Like he's great. And I think that, we both got Pettersson, a couple passes in the back here, nailed that. Any other props you like in this game?
Yeah, I just sort of, you alluded to it, but I did kind of want to kind of go through how I see this shaping up depending on Pageau playing or not. If you're trying to get into the weeds here, this is sort of how I think it'll happen. So last game with no Pageau, he stepped into the second power play unit. When Lee went out, they sort of reshuffled things. So Pageau was unit 2. Pageau went out. Barzal went to unit 2. That became unit number 1. So if Pageau misses, just basically expect Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey, Nick Leddy, Oliver Wahlstrom, and Barzal to be the top unit there. That's very exciting for Oliver Wahlstrom, who, like you said, is just, super pedigreed guy. But if Pageau plays like we're expecting, I would think that basically Czarnik drops out of that second unit and Barzal goes to that second unit. And then you see Barzal, Eberle, Bellows, Pulock, and then Beauvillier. So if Pageau plays, I like Beauvillier and I like Bellows. If Pageau doesn't play, I really like Wahlstrom. That's sort of how it shapes up for me. These player props, I don't expect them to change much. So that's just sort of a thing where I think if you get, the news that Pageau's in or Pageau's out, that's where you place to score a goal, because I think there is value on all 3 of those guys in any of those, depending on which circumstance happens. But that's just a very specific sort of, in the weeds type appeal. You got to love it when you get that sort of, nitty gritty here on the Mayo Media Network. So anything else here?
I honestly feel like I might talk myself into one of these shot props as well. They're almost all positive. Ovi's been firing at will. Over 4.5. I'm okay with it. I know the matchup's a little bit tough, so I'm not sure if it's an absolute jam, but I do like it. If Brock Nelson is still on that first power play unit, if we have any confirmation of that, I mean, he saw a ton of run. I mean, 22 minutes. If he's on the top power play getting 22 minutes of ice time against the backpack Washington team, I think he's a decently safe bet to get over 2.5. I mean, his line isn't, perfect because Beauvillier might be a bit of more of a shooter than anyone else, but, Bailey's kind of more of the passer there. So I could talk myself into that as well. Matt, is there any thoughts on any of these, or do you want to move over?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Brock Nelson shot prop is my favorite one there. Yeah. You look at his last handful of games, and the only game he didn't hit that over 2.5 was against Boston. I would definitely think that Washington defensively is more akin to the Sabres or the Devils. And he's had over 2.5 in each of his last 6 games against those teams. So he's playing a ton, like you said. He's playing, really good amount of minutes and shooting a lot. So I like Brock Nelson's shot prop the best there. So let's go over to Boston at Pittsburgh. This game, a direct rematch of Monday night's matchup between these two teams. Pittsburgh did win 4-1 at home, of course, but it's a bit more misleading than the eye might indicate because Pittsburgh got absolutely shelled. They gave up 43 shots on goal. Boston just couldn't beat them. So what are your thoughts here going right back to it? Pittsburgh a slight favorite at -115.
Yeah, definitely give me the Boston side of this one. I think that we get a similar kind of game with a different result. I really like Boston in general. I think Boston won. I mean, I'm hoping it gets overlooked in DFS. I don't think it will because they put up so many shots on goal. And, I definitely alluded to this, but, Matt Grzelcyk, 8 shot on goal game. And I know we almost wish he didn't because we were so excited about him, top line with McAvoy just being so good at that defensive pair that, anytime they're on the ice together, they're just dominating possession, dominating the play. I know you have some stats. I don't know if you have them pulled up still, but we could definitely get to that because he has been an absolute world beater and just continues to do that at a very fair price. So that Boston one is going to be a staple of my lineups. And with that being said, I think really the Pastrnak shot prop over 3.5, I'm in on it as well. Still, I think that he's more than likely to hit that. I really don't have a problem with any of them. I think that they should dominate possession and play when they're on. They're going to put that line up there a lot. So you could even give me Marchand as well.
Yeah, one of the underrated quotes of the last week, I think it was the last week, but maybe a week and a half or whatever, was Charlie McAvoy when asked about playing with Matt Grzelcyk. He asked, what's your favorite thing about playing defense with, Grzelcyk? And McAvoy's response was deadpan, oh, we don't play much defense when we're together. And that is so true, but not in the way you might think. It's because they always have the puck in the offensive zone. So this season, I have it pulled up courtesy of HockeyViz. By the way, hockeyviz.com, if you are, new to this or whatever, just some of the best graphics in terms of, just seeing hockey from a different perspective. Be sure to check that website out. It's great. You can get lost for hours there if you're really interested in sort of the underlying numbers of hockey. But using their environment distiller, you can look at with Grzelcyk and McAvoy on the ice at 5-on-5 this season, 90 minutes, Boston's out shooting their opponents 65-23. It is just utter dominance when they're out there together. And of course, most of the time they're playing with the big boys, Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak. And that takes away from some of it, but also that's what they're doing. So utilize it. I love in GPPs, over on DraftKings, just jamming in that top line and Matt Grzelcyk. You get a power play stack. You get, just super tightly correlated high upside pieces. Yeah, they're expensive, but that's what's going to give you some leverage there, in my opinion. So I think that's my favorite way to approach this game. Grzelcyk having 8 shots on goal, I think that's a little bit of an outlier, just he himself having those shots. But I think that you can bet the over on this, Pastrnak over 3.5 is only -134. That just seems pretty good to me. He hit it on Tuesday. And I think if even half of those Grzelcyk shots go elsewhere, like you would expect, Pasternak's likely to soak up most of those. So just really like that number. But you could also talk me into some Marchand and Bergeron too. But I'm just not fooling around with it. I'm going, Pastrnak. He's the big boy.
I totally agree. 100%. That is exactly. I mean, I think that Pastrnak shot props are my favorite. I think there's going to be a ton of pace here. I mean, honestly, I do like the over. I think if anything, I think both goal. We shouldn't have Rask, correct? Am I losing my mind? No, he was out last game, but I don't. It's not. He skated, so there's a chance.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't really know what his deal is. So yeah, he absolutely could.
If it's Halak and DeSmith, I'm just gonna take and the over. Okay, see ya.
Yep. This is the game, you said, we have 1-6 on this slate. I honestly thought this was it. I know it's Boston, but Pittsburgh has been playing with, good amount of tempo. Malkin, we haven't even talked about him. He seemed to be back. We were sort of dancing on his grave a bit to begin the season. He just wasn't really doing much for us, but out of nowhere, here he comes. Points in his last 8 games in 9 of his last 10. Like he's just really putting up numbers for us. So, I think he's an okay bet in terms of his shot prop. He's just getting much more involved offensively. But even these point props, I think, are just fine to go with him as well. So one guy who that does impact is Evan Rodriguez, plus 375 anytime goal that did hit on Monday night, playing with Malkin, playing on the second power play unit. I think those odds are just a little bit too long in my opinion, so you could sprinkle some plus 375 in there, if you ask me. So any other thoughts here?
No, I think we should move over to, I think that, the longest odds, second longest odds of the night, right?
Yep.
Yeah, second longest odds. The Carolina minus 235 on the road against Detroit. It is the 1-6 over under. I mean, I think it's really obvious that most people will side with Carolina probably winning this game. I know as of late, it feels like we've seen a lot of big underdogs find a way to get the W. That string might convince some people to consider a plus 195, but I just don't think I'm falling for it. I think that Detroit's still really bad. And I think Carolina is still one of the best, possession teams in the entire league and probably control this game from start to finish. I don't know if I like it enough to say I'm going to put money on the puck line for Carolina. And I also think there's just some better value bets in this game than taking the money line. So, overall, I think if anything, I might slightly like the under, just thinking Detroit doesn't get more than 1 goal. And then, Carolina doesn't have 5. But other than that, I'm kind of more interested in looking into some of these props within the game and going that avenue.
No, for sure. I think the under here is the best bet. Maybe you could argue the Svechnikov, shot prop is the best bet. I certainly would not.
I've never played it.
I certainly would not fault you for saying that is the best prop here. But, without Trocheck, the Carolina just hasn't really been scoring much. In their last 10 games, they are one of the worst teams at putting pucks in the net at 5-on-5. Actually, when you adjust for opponent, they are the worst team based on some of the natural stat trick adjustments that I do for opponents. And of course, power plays and whatever else have stuff to do with that. They're not accounted for, but I don't think Carolina is a team that I would, necessarily say jumps out in terms of having like a vaunted power play, especially without Trocheck. So it's just like one of those places where I see the 6 and I'm just like, I don't think Detroit puts up more than 1 or 2. And I think Carolina gets up by a couple and they just shut it down, 3-1 type finish for me. So I like the under. I'm not betting the Carolina or Detroit sides. I don't think that's worth a bet at this long of odds. Yeah. But, of course it comes down to the Andrei Svechnikov shot prop. Like, is there anything else we can say about this at this point? Like,
no.
It's getting
so often
slightly longer, I guess, yeah. Minus 134. Maybe that's just an adjustment for the opponent, though, honestly.
Yeah.
But he's hit it 5 of his last 6 games. Like, it's just kind of silly. And we're looking at it saying like Svechnikov should be playing more minutes even, and he's not quite getting the 19 minutes that we expect for a guy of his caliber. But even in 15, 16, 17 minutes, he's still hitting it. And I think there is upside given just how condensed this offense is now to get there. So, that's my favorite bet. I don't really think there's much else to talk about because.
No, I think, if you're doing a couple kind of bigger leg parlays, I could talk myself into doing like a multi-point game, but I just don't think it's worth it. You're just not getting quite good enough odds on Aho or Svechnikov on DraftKings. Maybe you can find something on FanDuel or another site that you use, but I think that a multi-point game is somewhat in the cards, but I need a little bit more enticing on the odds to jam that in instead of just saying like, yep, Svechnikov nearly a free square. Not always, obviously. We're gambling. But I think that's definitely the take.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about DFS for a little bit here, but I don't think betting wise it makes sense. But in the DFS streets, with so much sentiment probably going toward Carolina here, does Detroit interest you at all?
I think, I mean, the reason why I say yes is only because of how concentrated the minutes are for Detroit one. The correlation on the power play is a little bit concerning. We're not exactly sure what they're going to do, but getting Larkin at 5,600, Fabry at 42, and Mantha at 49 is at least somewhat considerable. Considering if Detroit keeps us at all close, I mean, those guys should see 25, 20 to 25 minutes each, and that's not an exaggeration. That is decently likely. I mean, they're basically pretending like that line has McDavid on it, and because to the rest of that team, Larkin might be. So, I think if you want to get really contrarian and play like a really high upside line, that's one way to go about it. Carolina, like you said, missing Trocheck, it hurts them enough to where like maybe you could talk me into that, but I'm probably more than likely not going to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair. They come in right at right at about 14,000 in total on DraftKings, and that just helps you fit in a lot of these higher priced players that we talk about. So don't hate that at all by any stretch. So let's go from there over to Arizona at Minnesota. Minnesota minus 210 favorites. DJ rocking. Do you want to talk a little bit about your shirt there?
Oh yeah, we got the Dollar Bill Krill shirt on right now. Just couldn't not buy it. It was impossible. There was no way around it. I saw it and I was like, well, there goes my money. It was instantly gone. I don't even remember clicking the send money. I was like, how much is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Infinite, perfect. Take it.
Yeah, no, that's
very excited. And I bought it, a couple of weeks ago, came in the mail. I think they were just waiting to send it until Kirill Kaprizov just blew everything wide open. He has. And his shot on goal prop is not on DraftKings. Zuccarello still 1.5, even though he hits that every single night. I think even Fiala at 2.5 is still in play, even though he's not. I don't think we're hitting it quite as consistently. It might just not be worth it, right? With Zuccarello right there.
Just Zuccarello it's minus 200, which it sucks, but like I'd rather see plus 110, whatever, 2.5 over, and that would probably be a jam still. But yeah, I mean, Zuccarello, I think is great. If you're out here trying to bet on Ryan Suter shot on goal over props, there's all these numbers on my screen, just call. Maybe you should get some help because Ryan Suter is not it. You are not watching hockey to place bets on Ryan freaking Suter, man. Like DraftKings, what are you doing here? Like, don't do this to us.
Yeah, just put Krill at 7 shots on goal and I'll take the over. I don't know why we're doing this.
8 shots in back-to-back games for him. Like, just what a weekend. Just awesome stuff out of him. This game, Minnesota is just everyone's favorite team. I feel like we were on them to begin the season pretty steady.
We both had them in the playoffs. I know that for a fact.
We talked early about how Kaprizov added an element to this team that just didn't exist before. And, it's nice to see that. Unfortunately, we can still take advantage of that with a guy like Matt Zuccarello on betting sites. In daily fantasy, though, it's really tough. Kaprizov is now above $6,000 on DraftKings, as is Zuccarello. Like, it's almost crazy. Like, just thinking about these guys profiling as playmakers and you're paying, 12,000 for them combined, but you can't argue with the matchup. Arizona is terrible. I will never get over just how wrong I was about Arizona kind of dominating that St. Louis series earlier this season, where they played 7 straight games and basically just mopped the floor with them in 6 of them. It was just really, really short-sighted, I think, just to sort of read too much into one matchup. So Arizona just hasn't been it. They haven't done it. So maybe this is the spot where they turn it around. But I'm not trying to find out because I think this Minnesota team is a juggernaut defensively. And now that they have Kaprizov, they're also very good offensively. So watch out, NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I think the minus 167 on Kaprizov to have a point is in play. Betting on points can be a little bit tricky. It's not as obvious that the player X is going to shoot the puck compared to get a point when a secondary assist is incredibly random. But he's going to see the ice time. They are rolling right now. That line with the reason I like it so much, I think, is because he is becoming the shooter there, and it's not necessary, but if you look at most of the point lines for any player, guys that shoot the puck more just end up inherently getting better lines because tips, rebounds, all that stuff kind of lead into it. Like if you look at like Pasternak, Marchand, and Bergeron, perfect example. Bergeron normally has much worse lines because he's just not the shooter there. Yet he's just slightly better than Zuccarello. And I just don't know if that's correct. So like I'm saying, I think that he's a pretty strong play there at minus 167. It isn't perfect. I'd like it to be a little bit closer to the middle. But I do like it a good bit.
Yeah, I mean, here's a weirder long shot for you. Minnesota seems committed to Nick Bjugstad on this top power play unit for Minnesota, with Kaprizov, with Zuccarello. You can get him to score a goal at plus 375. I think I might go one further and just say first goal, Nick Bjugstad, 19-1. I'm sort of thinking if their power play doesn't convert early, they could just put it in the blender. They could put whoever else out there, but I think they would give it at least one chance, just given how solid they've played.
Up front?
Yeah, so he's not front. He shoots a decent amount. DJ, you also called on the Moines Gate podcast, Jared Spurgeon. He's kind of the fifth guy on that power play. He's not done shit this year for us.
I don't understand. I am like when I saw he had 5 points through 25 games, I thought that was a typo. Like how they seemingly are fun and scoring, and he's playing minutes and he's on the first power play seemingly every night. I mean, there was a little stretch in there, but I don't understand that at all. I think he's a bit too cheap on DraftKings as well. Yeah. Like him and Grzelcyk are kind of the supreme value on defense that I think will help you afford a lot of those other guys. So, I think that Spurgeon shot blocks, and if he gets a goal, I know it's defenseman. It's really hard to bet on, but he's on the first power play at plus 400, and he does shoot, and he has had hat tricks in the past, I believe. So let's get crazy.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like last year he had a hat trick.
I believe that's right. I want to say he had one of the highest defenseman scoring games. I think I looked at this over the summer and was kind of shocked to find that it was like him and Tony DeAngelo. May he rest in peace.
I remember the DeAngelo game for sure because he had a hat trick. I'm like positive.
All right.
Yeah.
2 more games here. Next, we have Tampa at Dallas. This one at 8:30. Tampa played a Monday afternoon game, I believe, to facilitate this travel schedule. Trying to rearrange things to fit in a lot of the canceled Stars games that canceled due to COVID, the weather. Who knows what's next? But hopefully, it's not Tuesday night. Here we have Tampa minus 148, over under of 5.5. First glance, this line on Tampa feels low. And then you sort of think about it some more and you're like, on a back-to-back, they had to travel a long way. Like, is there something we're missing here on this Dallas team? That's sort of what I'm wondering.
I mean, I just think it's really easy and cheap to just say, well, Tampa, obviously Tampa. I do think it's, again, like Tampa's had a couple rough games in a row where they lost to Detroit and they lost to Nashville in like 3 consecutive games or something. And, maybe Vegas is just overcorrecting for that. So I think it's worthwhile to get in on Tampa. I don't think they're broken. They looked broken at that, 4:00 start against Nashville, but I just don't see that carrying on, even though it's a back-to-back. I am more than likely I'm just going to stay away from it though, because of the back-to-back factor. And just, I don't think it's quite enticing enough for me to get all over. Dallas, again, 9-9-6 on the year, not been great. I probably don't take them either. I think I'm slightly leaning towards the under here, but again, I just don't know if it's quite worth your while to go with that. I think there's a couple other props in this game that I'm a little bit more intrigued with. So what are your initial thoughts? Is there over under kind of thoughts on this from you?
Yeah, this is sort of my thinking. Like I was down so bad in the Stanley Cup showdown between these two teams. I just thought, like Dallas is going to win one of these and everyone's on Tampa, whatever. Maybe this is a spot. Maybe this is a spot where I get it all back. Dallas seems like they're back at full strength. They welcome back Roope Hintz to the lineup. He'll be in and out, as the season goes on, apparently for his lingering injury. But they got Radulov back in the fold. They obviously have Klingberg back now after missing a game due to the birth of his daughter. Sorry. So I think this Dallas team at full strength maybe is worth a shot. I think that Dallas hasn't been playing that terribly as of late. And like you noted, Tampa has had some stinkers. They're in a really tough, schedule. This game basically is a schedule loss for them if you think about it. So I would be interested to see, what some of these more advanced models that do account for the just the travel schedules and all that, like back-to-back type stuff. I bet they might say that Dallas is a good bet here, despite, plus 127 being kind of, reflexive when you look at it. Just go like, whoa, that seems, like a bad bet. But I think it might be a good one. So side me on to this Dallas side. And if you're feeling a little bit, like leery, you can bet the Dallas Stars, puck line at +1.5 and just say like, this is just something to throw in a parlay. Tampa really just hasn't shown up. So give me the Dallas side of this one, but any player props here that you like?
Yeah, I think with Dallas, I think most people would agree this game should be pretty close and it may be almost too close to call. I don't really understand why Pavelski's have a point line is still -129. He's like a point per game player. I think that's decently savvy to get in on. Again, like that layer, you're going to see a ton of run. He's been great all year. That and then the Brayden Point shot line, I think at -109 is pretty fair as well. Point's kind of been a guy that sometimes disappears with shooting, but I think that more likely than not, he's going to have over 2.5 in most games he plays. He's just a supremely talented player. And I do think that number, we're going to look back at it at some point and laugh because I think Brayden Point should be a bit better of a rate shooter than he's shown this year early on. And while I have it at -109, I'm going to jump on it.
Yeah, I certainly like both of what you just called out between Point and Pavelski. One longer odds that I think you should keep in mind is that, Dallas has just done this thing all the time where they're really messing with their power play units, trying to find something that works. And Pavelski's been a mainstay. So, of course, he's in there. But as of last game, they have joining Pavelski, Jamie Benn, Miro Heiskanen, Klingberg, so both defensemen, and then Jason Robertson. And Robertson is 4-1 to score a goal. If he's on the top power play unit, I think that's really just the reason why you play him. At 5-on-5, he's playing with Radulov and Hintz. Of course, we, like that as well, but it's not like they're seeing a ton of minutes or anything. But it's just that power play role that, just playing with really good players. I think 4-1 odds for him to score a goal is just a little bit off relative to some of these other bets. So I like that one. But anything else here before we get to the late hammer?
Yeah, no, I think we just get right over to it. Anaheim wearing the reverse retros for the first time. I'm excited to see them out there against Colorado. Colorado, a massive, massive favorite, 5.5 over under in this one, probably to do with the fact that they're not giving Anaheim much credit as far as an opportunity to score. The pricing on DraftKings is really, really, really expensive for Colorado. But, with Makar being out, hopefully it gets better soon. We are getting some value in power play one, Samuel Girard. Potentially it's not as good as we're used to with him being a guy that normally covers around the 3s and the 4s, but he's been great. So Matt, what are your initial leans in this game? Are you considering just taking Colorado, or what are your thoughts?
So yes, I am considering just jamming Colorado. It's tough though, because, usually you think like these surefire bet, giant odds goalies, especially on DraftKings, just are never priced like, so I'm thinking like 8,500 is usually like the highest price goalie. And that goalie could be -200 or -330. And it just doesn't change. Like that's the highest number. And so -279, like, Grubauer, you would think makes for a great play. But Colorado is so thoroughly dominating the shot shares, like when they're playing, like their goalies just can't even get like those massive upside games. So it's one of those weird spots where it's like I'm on a super heavy favorite, but I'm also not out here saying like, yeah, just take their goalie because score effects and yada, yada, yada. Of course, this could happen, but Anaheim certainly isn't the team that I would expect to break out, the 30, 35 shot game that you need to sort of like actually break a slate. So, it's something where I am definitely playing tons of Colorado. You mentioned Sammy Girard. He's been great. He's been basically Cale Makar, which is insane to think about because Makar had some legitimate Norris, hype before he went out due to injury. But you look at especially the counting stats, the goals, the assists, the shots, the blocks. Girard's doing it all for us. And I think at 5,700 on DraftKings, he makes for a great play. So any of these player props stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I I wish we had a little bit better on Nathan MacKinnon at 3.5 minus 182. I'm very in on him tomorrow. I think he's an awesome play. That would be kind of my favorite. I think that he's pretty likely to hit that with the way he's been playing and everything of that nature. But I also kind of I'm considering, I guess I don't know if I'm going to end up having it, but Silfverberg at plus 120 to have a point also seems decently all right. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get stone cold shut out. Silfverberg's playing a ton of minutes, power play 1. Just the entire team's been very unlucky. So I would consider that as well as a bit of a out there, contrarian bet on this game. If they score 1 or 2 goals, he more than likely could be involved. Other than that, it's kind of tough. Honestly, I didn't really see how crazy these lines were, how long they were. Is there anything that you're?
I mean, we don't usually get these blessed Colorado slates, I think is something I've noticed, because every time I listen to, a Meany show, it just seems like he's yelling at us like Mikko Rantanen, they're not fixing this line.
Yeah.
And I thought they had fixed his shot line for a bit, but apparently not, because over 2.5 shots minus 155.
That might be the take.
Yeah, that seems to me like it's the take. He's got 33 shots in his last 10 games. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. He has multiple shots in each of those 10 games, so he's been super consistent. It just doesn't quite seem right to me. So, I mean, I think that's just sort of where we, draw the line. Your Silfverberg point was interesting. It is worth pointing out that on DraftKings, they have caught on to the fact that Rickard Rakell is just a freaking boss. He is 6K on this slate. We were getting him at 4K the other week, and it was like, yeah, he's in a tough matchup, but like, look at this. He's really, really good. And he went on a freaking bender. So I'm happy to have, gotten some of those big games out of him, but at 6,100, I'm very happy jumping off. But if you want a guy to just sort of ride up the price charts, I think Silfverberg could be that guy, 4,400. Like you said, he's been pretty consistent in his career. He's not quite that level of Rakell, but I do think there is a small amount of value there, especially, that plus 120, point line, especially if you aren't, too in on this Colorado team defensively without Makar, rolling out AHL guys, basically. Jacob McDonald, top pairing defenseman. Like, he's been good, but who knows how long that lasts. So, yeah. Anything else? Should we talk about DFS real quick? Or no, let's recap our favorite bets and then move on.
Yeah, there you go. Way to stick to the order. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, again, a lot of good shot on goal props. Honestly, that Rantanen one, I looked at it and I thought it said 3.5 at first. And I was like, what? And then you said it was 2.5. And I looked back at it. I was like, oh my God, that does say 2.5.
Yeah.
So that was a really sharp. I think that's definitely up there with one of them. He's hit that in 5 straight games. I think maybe more. Two straight games, I guess. But like a lot of the last, there's like 2 in there, like outliers in there. And then the rest in the past 10 games, he has he's 7 of 10. And I think that this is a really good matchup for mid again. So that's on there with Svechnikov. I think those are, 2 of my easy money ones I'm going to put together. And then honestly, I do really like this over in the Boston-Pittsburgh game.
Yep. I was queuing that one up as well. I think the over on the Sabres Devils is going to be one of mine too. I just don't see those guys stopping pucks. It's sort of like
and plus 130. I mean, they really don't like it.
Yeah, that's true. So I think getting that over does make sense. So let's see. You took a couple of the really good shot props. Zuccarello, definitely one of the ones who you're probably not playing that alone just because minus 200, that's just not quite the sort of return that you want to see on your bets for the most part. But it certainly is, a great value in my estimation. He should hit that at least 75% of the time, and that's just not priced like it. So, that's just sort of a really easy one there. And let's see, one more for the pod. Dallas Stars money line, full strength. See the return to glory for the former Western Conference champion Dallas Stars here. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about DFS. Before we do stacks, let's talk about a couple goalies, because I did get a YouTube comment, and I feel like we were good about it for a little bit, and then we just stopped talking about
I
goalies.
tried my best. I really tried my best. So I'm going to, again, like, let's do it. I mean, I think obviously, like you mentioned, I really did like what you started out with Colorado. I think it might be popular, especially to a newcomer to the game, but you're just like, if they don't get the shutout, they're probably just not going to reach their value. So I really kind of like fading Colorado goalie out of this equation. If they only see 20 shots and allow 1 or 2 goals, they're not going to get there. I would much rather focus on, this is tough. I might consider going with whoever starts for Minnesota as one of my staples in net, or whoever starts for the Devils, probably as my top 2. Because I think the pace will be there in that Buffalo game, but are they actually going to score more than 1 or 2 goals? I don't know.
What if I told you there was a plus 127 favorite on the slate, priced at $7K on DraftKings? Like, this is just sending, I had no idea. Jake Ottinger, he's only plus 127, man. Like, these Vegas guys, they're usually pretty freaking good. So I'm going to use them. I'm going to trust them. Like, they're priced 127. Guys priced exactly the same. Arizona, let's see, they are plus 175 to get a win on the road. Like, you got a home goalie, slate dog, 7K. Sign me up for Jake Ottinger, man. Like, it's here. It's time.
Or one of those Islanders goalies. I mean, I think that's also be sharp. If you're using the Vegas odds to help you, I think that would lead you in that direction.
Which you should.
Well. Yep. Which you should. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Great way to look at it.
So there's a couple goalies. I'll throw on Kaapo Kähkönen or Cam Talbot, whoever starts, just because Minnesota is definitely the soundest defensive system for goalies. And you're paying the tax, but I like them the most of any of these high-priced goalies. So let's talk about some of our top stacks and then get on out of here.
All right. I will try to do a couple different ones from the Morning Skate pod. Definitely go over there and check that out as well, if you like getting more takes and winning more money. But that's up to you. It's not up to me. I think that one that I know that you're not as in on this as I am, but we did actually see Necas in the top power play. I would not consider him, and I looked at his, I did not like it to score. He's not been the best shooter in the world, but if you like Carolina as much as I do, him and Aho and Hamilton, I think is still a really good cheap stack. If Necas does get a goal, which is more than, it's in the cards for sure. He's an extremely gifted player. He's definitely going to smash at 5,300, but 2 assists from him, a couple goals from Aho, and you really might have the right kind of correlated line that some people might not be in on. I love it with Hamilton, obviously, but it's not super easy, or Hamilton's really expensive. I also like Jake Bean a good bit as a cheap option at defense. His minutes have fluctuated a bit, but he's been a really consistent rate shooter, getting 15 to 18 minutes. If they get up big, I think he might end up kind of maxing out at 18 to 20, and maybe he ends up hitting a shot bonus for us.
Okay. Yeah, no, I absolutely love the value there on those Carolina guys. Like, they're just a little too cheap in my opinion.
Yeah, but I know you're worried about Necas shots, and I agree with that. I am,
of course.
That's the problem with him in GPP. Is like,
that's why you stack him. That's right. Sort of the thing. It's like, he needs multiple points to get there. How does he get multiple points? With his friends. So you play Necas with his friends. So I definitely like the thought process there. I'm going to pick one of these, just super high tier, stacks. There's probably 3, the Colorado one, Boston one, and Pittsburgh one. They're just super expensive. The other ones, you could probably make an argument there's a bit more value, but I'm making room for Boston one and Matt Grzelcyk. That's not a surprise. I just think that's the money spot here. So, give me that full line stack, and I'll take one more just because I was ready. We talked about Pageau sort of being the key to the slate, like almost slate breaking. Like, DJ, you said it, not me. Yeah. But I actually do think it has serious DFS implications. So I want to take advantage of that and go with, if he is in, I want to play Matt Barzal, Anthony Beauvillier, and Kiefer Bellows, saving some value on the Eberle-Beauvillier swap. I think they're pretty much the same in terms of overall median, and I think that they will correlate on the power play. So I'm willing to sort of get a little different, play a really high price stack with those 3 guys, and make some money.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing about hockey DFS that's different from most other sports is the information gap. I mean, you don't get slate breaking football news that everyone isn't in on and understands and knows. So that's really where you can find, it's more like the NBA where you get that last minute guy in or out, where the line's going to look, and can really flip the entire slate on its head. As
for GPPs, for sure, for cash GPPs, games, for sure. For cash games, it doesn't really matter if Pageau's in. Let's be honest, like it's not going to change that much. But the correlations, I think, do matter a lot. And yeah, they do change, and they do make it, good GPP information for getting those correlations right.
I'm gonna do something also very easy then, and just go with Rantanen, McKinnon, and Girard. Very easy. Yep. Really expensive. You're gonna have to get a little cute, and I think that just why not put one more on there? Zacha and Palmieri.
Yep.
And I think if you put that together, that could work. I'm kind of doing the math on it right now, but especially if you play Ottinger and net, then you definitely have the money to get that.
Yeah. Done. And, just go back, just make sure you're paying attention when we talk about these longer goal scoring odds guys, because odds are most of these guys are cheaply priced over on DraftKings. So like those are really good pieces to plug on in to your, to these stacks to make these really expensive stacks work. You just play a couple low price pieces and hope that they score a goal, and that'll get you enough to sort of win a tournament if your top line stack hits. And then these other sort of uncorrelated but really cheap pieces also hit. Like that's just how you do it. So best of luck out there on this Tuesday slate. DJ, anything else before we go?
Go Bonnies. We'll talk about it more on Thursday.
Yes, your NCAA tournament lore. So as always, thanks to PrizePicks for sponsoring the show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Let's see. The show is at Mayo Media Net. I am at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJs_Mitchell94. And leave a subscribe, leave a like, give us the thumbs up, and give us a review. We love to hear your comments, your feedback. Tweet at us. We love to hear any of it. So best of luck here on this Tuesday slate, and we will see you.